to new business. Postponing the program policy.
Postpone. Table.
Actually, the discussion we just had is a lead up to that, so
Yeah.
keep that in mind when I finally get around to writing it. So I guess the next thing is the firewall replacement. And there is a resolution on the table. Which one is that?
It is 2013-23 for the purchase of a new firewall system.
Okay. Well, the long and the short of it is that a firewall, which was purchased about 2004, has passed end of life. We're about 4 to 5 months past end of life. So we're vulnerable with our security, and it's time to replace it. Scott did a very nice job of looking at options for us. We have Cisco equipment now, which is the name brand in firewalls. So he got a quote from Cisco, which does not bundle its pricing. It's an a la carte kind of approach to it. And we wanted the firewall, we wanted installation help, we wanted a service contract, and we wanted to support our wireless system. And putting those pieces together, the firewall, the whole quote was $16,303 from Cisco. And he explored Dell equipment, the Sonic wall, which Dell is a company that you all know. It has moved into the firewall business, and they have they gave us we got a good report, a good quote on state contract for the firewall, and then he started piecing the other pieces together with other companies. So from GovConnection, we got a state contract pricing for the wireless access points, which is the little rectangular boxes. We have 7 of those throughout the building, so we provide wireless throughout. And then he went to Ocean Computer Group for the installation, because that's beyond the ken of their ability to do it. And he came up with a price of $96.83.25. So to go with the Dell and
That's almost half the price of the other one?
yes, it's a savings of $6,620. Cisco, you pay a premium for the Cisco brand.
Right.
And they have had, I wouldn't say a lock on firewalls for a long time. It's a very good system, but this Sonic wall is being purchased by major companies all over. And have had it for
There's a
years.
certain level of security that has to pass.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your
There's a
question.
certain level of security that has to pass in order to have, like, it's the encryption or whatever, it's like a certain grade. So if it passes that, then it could be ABC Computer or Dell, whoever it is. So it's really not, you pay for,
The
brand name.
The brand
it's
name.
like, it's buying a Jaguar versus buying a Toyota. And then you bought a Toyota, which is fine. That works.
Right, it gets us to the library now.
Exactly.
So I commend Scott for doing this amount of research.
Who's Scott?
Scott Kushner's our IT librarian. He's on duty tonight if you have any technical questions.
No, that's cool. That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
And state contract doesn't necessarily require it doesn't require bidding, because those prices have been vetted already and have been approved. But we need a resolution for this whole package so that we can enter into purchase orders for the individual pieces. Are there other questions? Again, this will come up again in 8-9 years, probably.
Do we have a motion?
Motion. One question, we don't put anything in there as far as contingency is concerned with the dollar amount?
I'm sorry. A contingency? I have a written quote.
Oh, it's a firm quote.
It's a firm quote.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I would was more worried about the installation, and yeah,
Second.
for full installation.
Yeah. Second?
I got a second. Mr. Siebert?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Kansas?
Yes.
Mr. Coriano?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Breen?
Yes.
Motion passed.
I'm sorry, there's another new one. Resolution 22.
2013, 22.
Yeah. Should I talk about that? Or do you- This is the third time a resolution of this nature has come to the board. It started, our first one was last year after we realized Ms. Kearns was going to be on an extended leave and some of her duties needed covering here, and we needed to compensate the employees who were taking on additional responsibilities. This one differs only from the previous one because Mr. Unrath has left the library's employment, so it only includes a stipend or an increase in salary for Wendy, for Joan Kopp, our finance clerk, who's Wendy's backup, and to Doreen Calfish, head of tech services, because she's taken over the supervision of the entire reference department. So the numbers are the same. We just left this open-ended until Amy returns or we have a disposition. Let's go.
I'm going to smack this
Can
plate.
you let her go? I mean, after some.
Executive session.
One question. So we're paying a backup to you?
I do payroll.
Okay, so now
And-
we're
and I
paying
do-
somebody $97 a pay period just in case you're out?
No, it's not just when I'm out, though. She does do other stuff, too, in addition to
No,
the job
This is
function.
continuing what we already had in place.
It's continuing, but I didn't amplify it with all the other duties that she does. She hand processes all of the continuations of our databases and maintains the vendor relationships, which is a part of what Ms. Kearns used to do as well.
No, all right, I'm just,
I just simplified it.
no, that's fine. I mean,
Yes,
me
but
not
when I'm
being here
out,
in
she
the
does
past,
do,
like,
she has to do the payroll.
She has to do payroll when you're
and all
not
the
here.
other stuff, like I do Excel spreadsheets to get to the payroll. I do, and then, you know.
Amy used to be the backup to do all that personnel stuff, so.
I'm just busting on this.
I know, it's okay.
And now Ms. Calfish does the $150 per pay period of that, okay.
Supervision of the reference department.
And we have no ETA on that other situation, right?
That's an executive session.
Oh, okay.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Coriano.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Siebert?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Kansas?
Sure.
Mr. Coriano?
Abstain. Yes, yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Now, the next one is the award for the lawn care contract.
That's number 24.
21.
Okay,
24.
in order, oh, I
Yes.
was going by this, okay. 24, I'm going to let the members of the Personnel Committee report on their recommendation it was recommendation to promote Megan Leonetti, who is now a senior librarian, to the position of principal librarian to replace Kevin. Hmm? To replace Kevin Unrath, who resigned last month. Did anybody, Brock and Cindy and Larry interviewed 3 candidates, the three finalists, have narrowed it down to 2, and
There was a discussion.
It was a good discussion. The
It was.
interviews were, Susan had narrowed it down to 3 really viable candidates. And initially, upon looking at the resumes, I thought I would have leaned more towards one candidate. and after having sat with all three of them, it was pretty clear that there was a Megan W. and a Megan K. Larry and I were completely on the same page that Megan W. was just really a little more articulate and polished and had a more professional zeal about her. They were pretty strong in most areas where we wanted to kind of compare technology, knowledge base of library,
Very strong.
supervision of staff. Megan W., who's already here, understands the runnings of this library and knows how to hit the ground running in terms of what she would do with scheduling. So she already identified some of the areas that she felt needed improvement. But I just felt overall that she was just she was more professional and definitely had a more, I don't know, articulate and
She's not intangible.
yeah, so.
Now, the position that she's coming out of, is that going to be filled? She's coming from a senior librarian to a principal librarian. Who's going to be, is there another person that's going to be promoted as a senior librarian
Well,
position?
at the end of that discussion, that question did come up. I asked the question because I have a hole to fill. And I have librarians and a certain number of librarians have to be on duty at all times in order to provide a safe place too. So we discussed it briefly. There was no.
Decision.
Yeah, it was late.
If
That
there's
was the
other-
point.
my question is, if
I
there's
would
other
think we would
candidate,
have to replace
I
that,
think
and I
we-
think that part of my having that discussion was, I would like to see Megan W. get it, but not at the risk of losing another librarian. So if it meant hiring Megan K. to keep Megan W., then I did not want to lose another librarian for that.
no, I guess my question is that
Yes.
if this other person was a good candidate,
Yes.
Yes.
then you might want to consider
We-
offering her a lesser position.
And we talked about that
We
as
talked
well.
about that as a
See if
possibility.
she'd be interested. in
I
applying.
also have
I mean, just because you have an opening and, you know.
Just see
We
if,
did discuss that.
Why bother
Make
going
sure
through the
she knows
whole
that there's
interview
another
process
position.
again and, you know.
It still has to be advertised.
Yeah, you would have to
According to
post it,
civil
but
service, it would have to be advertised and opened up. And I would have an internal candidate.
right.
I would have an internal
No, I guess the
candidate.
question is that maybe it's time to start getting some new candidates.
Well-
And not so much
Yeah,
the
and we
internal.
did have that conversation as the personnel committee, Robert. We
Because
did.
maybe you'll have like a
Those-
fresh perspective
again,
from someone coming in and
absolutely.
saying, you know what, the way that things have been going here for a long time, maybe some fresh blood, some new ideas.
Well,
It never hurts.
we did have that discussion, and I think we really thought that this other Megan would be a nice outside candidate if we posted and hired, because she did have all those other strengths.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Looking for
that's, I'm just throwing that out there. I mean,
No,
I-
and the
No,
service
and-
perspective.
And one of the downsides
We
is
discussed that.
her
Yeah.
existing employer is a much smaller library.
Right,
So she did not have the experience in dealing with a library of this size.
However, if I could hire a senior librarian, we'd go through that process. Current employees would have qualified employees would have an opportunity to apply.
Sure.
And
yeah,
in
and
this
there is gonna
case-
be a cascade effect, so at what
but you can always
point
write the
you,
posting in such a way that you,
at
It
what
could
point you
appeal to that
can,
other candidate.
Right.
at what point you
For a
can
number of
either,
personal reasons, we think it could
either
appeal.
hire somebody part-time or,
Well, I mean, I think that
at what step you get.
our
to.
strategic planning going forward that we have to talk about as far as what our plan is for next year and the budget moving forward. These personnel decisions that we're making now, we have to make sure that we're not kicking ourselves in the ass down the line and saying, well, now we're fully staffed again, and we really shouldn't be. So before we start filling positions and giving people hope to say, well, you can move up to this position and we're gonna create this cascade effect, and now you're talking about X amount of dollars we're gonna have to cut next year, I think that
Well,
we have to be a little careful as far as, you
yes.
know, you
But
know.
for this specific position?
No, there's no
This is-
choice. You
Yeah,
have to have-
no, you have to fill this position.
No, of course.
This
Could be
is-
part-time?
Not this position.
Not this position.
No.
This is a manager
No,
position.
No,
No,
it
this
cannot.
position
This,
could not be.
It's a critical position to the function of the library.
But we are under a hiring freeze unless we consider it, the board has to decide that the replacement of Megan is significant enough in order to bypass the hiring freeze at this point in time.
Home Depot just hired part-time, isn't
And I need to know that because I have a hole to fill. I have night times to staff, and I have to have 3 librarians on at all times. So I need another person there.
Sure.
This is at the skill, well,
The structure that it is right now, that you're saying you need 3 librarians here during every hour that you open, however many hours that is a week. Is there something that like in the labor agreement that says?
no,
so
it's
just-
because I know the building that we have 38,000 square feet to cover. We have people who go on breaks, and
No, I understand.
we have to
Now,
have
these
decision makers.
managers that are here,
2 part-timers.
no, but I guess the question is that as far as the ebb and flow of what these managers do, are they sitting in an office or are they up and around?
No, they're on public service desks.
So they're open, walking around, checking the
They
plays?
are accessible, they are not in a private office.
Okay,
But my most concern is at night, when we scale down all staff, administration isn't there, there's a hierarchy, a chain of command, that the senior most person is the decision maker in the event of a problem. But we also have to trade off, unfortunately, things like breaks and dinner hours, and so I have to make certain that I have, backup for these people.
no, I agree.
And
I'm just thinking,
Strategically.
the budget's a mess, and it's gonna get messier. So maybe certain sections of the library should close at certain hours, and maybe only have 2 supervisors after a certain period of time. And, not close the library completely, but maybe you don't need 38,000 square feet at 7 o'clock at night on a Wednesday. Maybe you need
Well, I think you're
X
on the
amount.
right track of something that.
And I'm just thinking
offset
strategically,
that,
like Rocket,
I would
I'm
need
trying to think
close
outside the box a little bit,
Yeah.
because I think that, and this is no, everybody here has been here, and who hasn't, I have no idea. I really could care less. I'm just here because I feel like I wanted to help out. So it's not like I'm trying to say that anybody did anything wrong before, but 38,000 square feet, and if there's only 10 people in the library at 7 o'clock at night on a Wednesday, I don't think you need 3 supervisors on at that point, or however many, I
I would
think
doubt
that
very much that you will see that few a number of people, any evening.
Obviously,
I think
there's
that-
some obvious ebb and flow to
labor management and hours worked and how many people are here at any given time, I don't think that there's ever been an analysis of that here, ever.
Well, our new gates will tell us that, won't
We do have about 2,000 people a day that come to this.
I'm not saying that you don't have
No, we
2,000
haven't
today. What I'm
looked at
saying
it.
is that
How many out there
if you have
did-
700 people at
But-
3 o'clock, and you
but
have 5 people at 8
Generally, we have an
o'clock.
open floor plan, so it's not possible.
Oh, no, it's very possible. You buy partitions and you say, this part of the library is closed from this time to this time, and you wash your hands. And you say, this is how we're gonna try to manage your biggest cost here is payroll.
Absolutely.
So
Because
the only way
it
to
is
cut
a
payroll is to
personal
cut
service.
sections of the library. You don't want to shut the library down and say, well, budgetary, we're closing the whole library, but maybe,
I
So
can
what you're
understand
suggesting is
that.
maybe possibly closing the children's section at 8 o'clock?
maybe you close the children's
What?
section at 7 o'clock, or maybe you
Hmm.
close whatever,
Well, at 7
whatever.
o'clock, they should be home having dinner and going to bed.
Oh,
No, I'm talking about utilization,
yes.
and I think that is something that,
Well,
because I was trying to think of how you save money at a library, because this is not an easy place to save money. There's a
Chances
lot of-
are, the one section you should close down is the one section that someone's gonna want, you know?
You know what? Too
Right.
bad. Because you're gonna have to say too bad. See, the whole thing is when you're trying to come up with a strategic plan, we closed the branches. That was too bad. So now, in order to say too bad, you're gonna have to say, what's gonna be too bad? You wanna cut down what people use the least. But what I'm saying is that if you're gonna have how many man hours here, and there's, 4 people walking around, to me, it just makes sense that maybe you have more video surveillance and, try to make it less labor intensive, and maybe that's a way to change it. I don't know. Or cut down sections of the library and say, you know what, we don't need,
You're right.
because
Absolutely right.
you don't
We
need
have
7
such a
people.
strange product, though. You can't say, all right, we're gonna close down the nonfiction tonight, or you could close.
I'm not, no.
That's what I'm saying, it's very
No, I'm not-
hard to.
I'm not saying-
There are
make-
conference rooms and all sorts
I'm
of
saying,
rooms. that can close down.
areas that,
But those are
that
areas
are
that would need a library,
They are closed.
It's a particular,
I would like to say that the public relations side of this is pretty awful. We hire people to help people, and to start saying, well, we put a partition up and so you can't go in there with your child and get the book tonight that you need for.
or maybe they would,
Put it up at 3 o'clock.
what I'm
4
saying is.
o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6
Point
o'clock.
I'm
is,
saying is that it's
gentlemen,
everything.
that I would
Close
rather
section.
close the building and not be open for those 3 hours and get that, instead of putting the fruit out there and saying, you can't pick it.
No,
You know,
What I'm
it's
saying is that if you
important.
close sections of the library and you say, if somebody needs something in that section, they would have to call somebody for help. You need a book in the children's section, it's after 7 o'clock, then
Then you don't have coverage in the main library.
Well, we.
And I
I
think
think-
part of our
that-
problem right now
how many
is,
people are here at a given time? What I'm saying is that your high traffic times are certain times of the day, and the rest of the day, this building is being overstaffed by probably the factor of 3.
How do you know that, Rob? How do you know that?
How do you know he's not right?
No.
How do you know he's
I don't
not
say anything,
right?
I'm asking how you knew that.
Have you been
How do
in
you
the-
know it's overstaffed by a factor of
I walk
four?
around here, because I walk around here at night. I walk around here.
How do you know that?
Why don't you walk
I've been
around
here.
now?
No.
Get up, you just
I didn't
walk
say
around.
anything. I didn't say anything. Rob said it's overstaffed by a factor of 3. How do we know that?
hold on, too many people at a time.
I'm saying, I'm guessing that there's probably, look what time we're here right now. Every time that we're here, okay, I walk around before I come in. So
Rob, I think that's the
only.
only time you're here.
Yes,
It is.
yeah,
If I may just
Because he
say,
uses the internet.
because I use the internet.
just from a
Library
legal,
of
Then why
Congress.
don't the two of you sit on the board of the internet? This is a public library, which is a community service,
Yes, it is.
which is to serve the people, not to tell them too bad.
Absolutely.
Closing those branches was tragic, not too bad. Both of you, need to have the attitude that we serve these people. And we
Oh, no,
want to
I
serve
didn't
them
want to close the
effectively.
branches.
We don't want to tell them too bad.
Steve, you're getting this wrong. I don't want to.
I don't think I'm getting it wrong at all. I think it's a disgrace. I think this attitude is a disgrace.
the only thing I'm going to say, obviously I'm not on the board, but we do have to be careful. Ultimately the role of the board is to oversee the library and to set policy. And I think, you hire a director to run the operations of the library. And so, we have to create a budget, and we have to live within our budget, and certainly it's good to brainstorm but
Barnstorm's a better word.
okay. But, ultimately, when we're starting to get into putting up partitions and I think that if you want budget cuts or you want the director to look at, savings and operations, that's something you could director to look at and come back with a recommendation, but,
I'm asking.
we're getting
We're gonna be
into,
replacing
what I'm
positions.
saying is, we're getting into issues where, and again, any superintendent, any township administrator, you're gonna tell me how to run my building. And so, what I think we should do is, if we're looking, if there's a feeling from the board as a whole that this building is overstaffed, then I think the board as a whole should direct the director to take a look at that and come back with a report or recommendation. But other than that,
No, I'm not, all I'm saying is that I come here on Wednesday nights, okay?
Once a month.
Well, I've been here 4 times on Wednesday nights.
right.
And usually when I'm here on a Wednesday night, the parking lot is very, very, very light. There's very few people in the library, and I'm sure that there are people that are getting paid to sit around. Now, I'm saying a factor of 3, because I know from my own business, when people can take advantage and sit around, they sit around. So I can tell you that it happens here, it happens in every business. Because at the end of the day, people are just here for their hours. And that's just the way it is. So what I'm saying is that as a budgetary, situation, maybe that's something to look at.
Well, I
That's
think,
Again, Rob, again, as Ms. O'Neill stated, there are people who have to, there are critical staff that have to be here at all times.
Oh, no,
Well,
I understand,
let me finish.
understand.
There are people who go on breaks, and there has to be management here. That's in some form.
100%.
So, at what point, the resolution is to replace a principal librarian with a senior librarian. At some point, we're going to have to replace a senior librarian. After that is when we can start looking at whether those people should be replaced with a full-time person or a part-time person or not at all. So, but
Well, all I'm
You know,
saying is
I-
that, all I'm
I
saying is you have a
understand what
supervisor that's watching the supervisor screwing the light bulb. So that's all I'm concerned about. Because in the public sector, this happens constantly with,
well,
and again,
I don't, what I,
and again,
what-
if that's the feeling of the board, then
I
we
think
can
what,
direct Ms. O'Neill to come up with a plan or a recommendation as to what strategy this should be. And at that point, we would act on that.
okay.
I think the library is a totally different kind of animal. It's just not like any other business. And on the one hand, I think it's great to have a new idea out there, but ultimately what's going to happen is it's going to be up to Susan to tell us whether it works or not. But I certainly like the idea of new ideas. The library is just totally different animal.
And there is an expectation that no matter what time you walk in the door here, you will get a level of service, whether it be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon
Of course.
or 8:30 at night. And we have to also maintain that. So,
But imagine there's something always that has to be being done while people are there. I mean, this is just like,
Everyone is supposed to bring work to their desk. If it happens to be a quiet night, they're making selections for new acquisitions. They're doing program planning. They're getting carts ready for shelving.
And again,
They're putting things away.
it isn't necessarily the
With
job
all
of the
the
board
cross-
to micromanage the operations of the library. Ms. O'Neill does a fine job of that already.
I was going to ask, who's responsible to determine the proper levels of staff?
well,
No, who has the responsibility?
Oh.
Is it-
Because the library director.
It's the recommendation of the director
Yes.
to the board of trustees.
all personnel recommendations come through the director.
Right now, is it the feeling of this board that the director is somehow failing that responsibility in how this library is staffed? Is that the suggestion of this board? And if it is, then logically, how do we address that problem? Does anyone have any basis to think the director has failed in the responsibility to staff this library? Does anyone think that?
Absolutely.
Or is it arbitrarily saying that it's overstaffed by a factor of 3 to 1 and that we have people watching other people screwing light bulbs? Is that the feeling of this board? Then the feeling of this board is that the director has failed in that responsibility and then we have responsibility to address it. If we do not think she has failed, then let her do her job and keep these arbitrary, callous, and damaging comments to ourselves.
Well, I think it should be looked at and examined, okay?
Okay, then
I
certainly make a
don't know.
motion.
I
Then make a
don't know.
motion. Then make a motion.
Make
Out
a
of order,
motion.
there's a motion and a second.
Okay, motion's made.
So motion to what?
There's already a motion and a second to adopt
what?
resolution 2013-24.
There was not.
There wasn't?
No,
Oh.
there's been no motion, but I would like the board,
Well,
if I might
we
say.
had a motion from, I think, what is the motion though, or somebody made a motion, or was going to make a motion. My only point is this.
Properly.
My only point is this, look,
He said it wasn't, he said it was,
okay.
somebody should look at it.
I'm not sure that anyone here is saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong, has anyone here actually said that they know for sure, that in their opinion, the staffing is, that we're overstaffed, or that they just want it looked at?
He's like, let's look at it.
Okay.
I was saying that right now, the strategic plan of moving forward is to reduce costs, okay?
Right.
I spoke to Brock about it privately, okay? And we said, there's a lot of work to do because we're severely going to be over budget moving forward. So the only thing that you have here is labor that you can move as far as a cost. So what I'm saying is, we might want to look at that moving forward, because are we overstaffed? I can't say that definitely. I can't say that we're not, but we are. All I'm saying is that there are times when, I mean, short times that I've been here, but aside from the first meeting, which was completely ridiculous, that there was 150 people here,
Well, we had the second meeting too, it was also.
and that was also ridiculous, but, I mean, I've been here with my children
I
where,
think that's ridiculous, by the way. The
Concerned
fact that
citizens.
somebody came out to the library,
I'm
and
saying
said
ridiculous in the amount of people that were here. That's not common for a Wednesday night
I
at
wouldn't
7
call it
o'clock.
I think,
I would call it ridiculous.
I think the way it should be, and again, I'm not a member of the board, but the way it should be styled is that there are gonna have to be there are gonna be budget restraints, and that, you know, the board should be planning long-term on if cuts are gonna be made, where they could be cut, as
And-
opposed to.
Which it is being.
As opposed to-
Which comes right back to the fact
Understand-
that I just explained, was that you are gonna have some cascade effect, but at what point do you say, do you hire someone part-time, full-time, or not, or don't replace them at all?
Well, my concern is that for too long, this type of thing where it's like, okay, we're gonna replace this person with this person, we're gonna move this person here,
How do you know that? How do you know that?
because this is what's been on, this is what's been going on.
I said, if you think there's a problem, then address it in a logical fashion. If you think there's a staffing problem, address it in a logical fashion.
This has been going on
What's been going on?
What's been going on?
We've had
But
almost $1
the
million
budget's been a problem for 5 years.
But it's not
You
been
get-
the library's
It's not, I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just telling you though, that this budget has been a mess. I looked at the financials for the last 3 or 4 years. Had it not been for this money situation with them taking back their finances, you've been over budget for 5 years. So I think that this is something that,
This board can't make arbitrary decisions. If you think there's a staffing problem, come up with a logical and reasonable way instead of arbitrarily just spewing out conclusions when I tell you you don't have the factual basis to do it.
Okay.
All I'm suggesting is you think that, then come up with a logical way to address it rather than spending a half an hour arbitrarily making decisions that's going to destroy this library. That's what I'm saying.
And the legal point that I just want to make is, again, if there are, the purpose of the board is to oversee the library, to set policy. It's not, and the budget. And you certainly have budgetary restraints and you have to live within them. And again, brainstorming is wonderful, but I don't know that we want to start telling the director. And I do think when we're talking about closing wings and putting up partitions, and I personally don't know how practical that is in a public library. Maybe it is, I don't know. But that really needs to come from her office. You know, you give her a budget to work with. You set the policy, you tell her the kinds of programs you'd like to see. But I think that she has to make that, she's a professional,
agreed.
and she's been here, and we have to look to her to make recommendations, because if she doesn't make them, you really can't act on anything when it comes to personnel. What I think you're trying to say is that we have a long-term budgetary concern that we should be looking at, rather than waiting till, and I think you've said this before, the end of the year where we're making cuts, unfortunately, as opposed to maybe addressing, and that's fine, but
I'm just
again,
concerned that we've been talking about this, it's now April, and we've been talking about this since January, and we have yet to do anything about the budget. Like,
well, that's.
There's a budget, the budget was passed.
no, I'm talking about the strategic planning moving forward, like, I'm just concerned that April is gonna come May.
And that's a
so
different
on.
concern, and that's fine to
And
discuss that.
that's why when
That's
you
a
talk about,
perfectly
we're
legitimate.
promoting people and putting people in positions, and we're just gonna move right through until September, October, and we're gonna say, oh geez, what's the strategic plan for next year?
We've looked at,
If
So what do you think the plan is?
If you look
Well,
at, if
the
you
board
look,
just-
if,
That's why I'm asking.
What do you think the plan is?
if you looked at, if you looked at.
That's what I'm
the-
asking. I'm
Excuse me,
asking, like,
Mr.
what's the
Brown.
plan?
He needs to
If
get
you
it.
looked at the 2012 budget, it's $150,000 under budget, came in at the end of the year. So, saying about budgets, yeah, it is a concern, and
we're addressing that.
And we should- and-
It's $300,000 is gonna be over next year because of the lack of money next year.
well, you're using alternative funding besides municipal allocation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's happened for the past 15, 20 years here.
But it's.
Whether
No,
it
we
be,
never-
whether it be, whether it
We
be.
never used
whether-
other appropriate, anything
I'm not-
other than municipal until
Well,
20.
fines and copiers.
We didn't spend that money, we saved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
Well,
didn't
it was-
use it, we
saved it and
operated
gave it back.
only on the municipal appropriation
Right.
until 2011. And
So
last
now we're
month,
using
the
these-
strategic planning committee was formed 4 weeks ago, and we have not yet met. And just to answer one other question that's out there, the library has one of the highest profiles of proficiency and effectiveness, and I can show you comparisons with libraries all across the state.
Yes.
And we've down 5 people.
Yeah, we are down 5 people.
Well, you could either make a motion on hiring this individual, or there could be other motions, but someone needs to make some kind of motion at some point.
Is there a motion
I
for
make a motion to
2013,
hire him.
24?
Yeah, it's probably
Absolutely second.
a good place to start.
Motion and second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Siebert,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Kansas,
No.
Mr. Cordiano,
Yes.
Mr. Monahan,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Breen.
Yes.
Motion passed.
And maybe rather than having another motion, maybe we could just, there's a suggestion that the strategic planning committee meet sooner rather than later and start taking a look at some of these issues. And as part of that, and I'm sure, Susan, you're a member ex officio of that committee, as you are all committees,
I will call them.
that you take a look at that and look at staffing issues as one of the things that you look at, the committee looks at and comes back with some ideas. Does that sound?
Well, I think we
That's
still
right.
have the immediate question of replacing Megan's position. And that really should be addressed. And I have full faith in the decisions that Ms. O'Neill has made as far as replacements. And my recommendation is that we go forward with the replacement.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I think-
Seek a replacement for Ms. Wayne's position?
I'll second it.
Mr. Siebert?
Well, is there any discussion?
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
No discussion.
Well, I mean-
Is there any other discussion?
Well, the motion was to replace.
What does the director think?
Yeah, what's the recommendation of the director?
And the other question is that if there was an internal candidate that took Ms.
I think
that
that
we're-
I'm going to give you a little bit of a long answer. The answer is yes, that Ms. Wernicke needs to be replaced. And the reason is that she performs certain jobs relative to technology training, one-on-one with the public, that she will no longer be able to perform. I need another person in there with the technology expertise that she has and is transferred to this new department in order to maintain the level of services that we've been providing.
If there are any internal candidates that would apply for that position, what level of employment would they be?
We could go for entry level, and so there would be a cost savings on salary. In the librarian classifications, we have librarian, senior librarian, and principal librarian. And we would hire at the entry level position, so there's a savings of, I think it's about $6,000 or $7,000 between the two. Actually, it's about 8.
That's even with an internal candidate.
So-
That would not enable me to attract the other Megan.
No, okay.
But that is like, asking for the moon in a way in this environment.
Hey, guys.
I have a very talented internal candidate, and one doesn't know what else she's going to get when you.
Ask and ye shall receive.
Every little bit.
So that's your recommendation?
My recommendation is to replace Ms. Weinecke with someone at the librarian level, and then have to prove themselves in order to move up to senior.
Is that your motion, Mr.?
Yes.
That's the one you already made, and we seconded it.
That's.
And that's, you echoed it perfectly, Susan.
Yes, full-time.
Full-time, is that correct, Mr.
Full-time.
Wilson, Mr. Nelson?
Now, I guess just
Yes.
question is, can that position be replaced by 2 part-time people? That you have more flexibility to have 2 part-timers and no benefits?
Oh, I hate that. Oh, I hate
I don't know what the rest of the world is.
Welcome to
that. It doesn't make it right.
2013. Listen,
What the rest of the world-
what's
Well,
happening.
you asked me, could it? And the answer to that is yes.
Should it? The answer is probably
Is a
no.
little mixed, because you're gonna get a better candidate and someone more likely to give the kind of commitment
I
to
just
this
have
library
one
full-time.
request then. If you interview a group of candidates and leave it open to, it could be a full-time job, it could be a part-time job. And look at the candidates and make a decision based on that, because, listen, I'm not trying to, what did Steve say? I'm just throwing out things
I
just to
think
say
I can do
arbitrary.
that.
Arbitrary. I'm not trying to be arbitrary here. I'm telling you that each benefit package that this place gives away is about $16,000 per employee.
You're right, the medical's much more than that. It costs $880,000 for 32 employees, the medical. That's in the budget.
Got it. But I'm saying,
No, regardless of the number, it's high.
regardless of the number, it's high. So what I'm saying
Number's
is
not
that
high.
if
What's
you
the
could,
budget?
it's ridiculous. Sorry about that word again, but that's a lot of money, $880 for 32 people. So what I'm
I
saying is,
recommend you choose your adjectives more wisely.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that if you interview a batch of people and you can find 2 qualified part-time people, you might want to start moving in that direction.
10.
What?
I think it's 810.
810,
For
okay.
32.
Forgive me.
So I'm sorry, it's
Was
20,
that before or after the increase came through?
is that 28,000 an employee? That's 28,000 an employee?
Because the renewal is up.
So that's 28,000 an employee? I mean, something like that? 27,000 an employee? Okay, so,
Go with
30,000, 28,000.
But
Okay, let's continue.
all right, so my point is that
if Larry
if you're gonna
wants to-
interview candidates and you're gonna put a job posting up, put 2 job postings up. It's a part-time position, it's a full-time position.
I don't know if.
Can you do that?
I can
don't know.
say either or.
Oh, we can, okay.
I think
And the reason why I'm saying this is that
we have to find.
I have to find out if that can be done.
that's a management position though,
Sure,
right?
we can do
Is that
that.
a management
No,
position?
it's not.
No,
It's not. a
but I'm not
management.
100% sure with civil service if we are allowed to post it both ways. Because that's kind of saying you're playing the system. I don't know if they'll allow us to do that. I'm being honest. I mean, if we
So then
can,
maybe you
Then
post
we
it as a
would.
part-time position first,
There we go.
see what you gather, and what if you gather 15 candidates that are qualified, and you say, I would hire any of these 15?
No, then you have to
Can you do that?
re-advertise for
You can't
full-time.
do
You
that.
have to know what it is you want to do.
I'm saying, post it as a part-time position to start out.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of housewives, there are a lot of people in Middletown that have different schedules. I think that you probably find a lot of qualified candidates, and you're gonna save,
This position requires a master's in library science. It's not a housewife.
there's a lot, all right, it's not a housewife position, but there's a lot of people right now that are looking for work, and there's a lot that,
It's a qualified,
That could be
Whoever-
housewives. Masters.
whoever
Masters and housewives.
the personnel committee, Ms. O'Neill, just deem have the qualifications for the position.
The motion's for a full-time
Yes.
motion,
okay.
so you just call the question.
Did it get seconded?
It did, so the motion
Is
is
there any-
is to replace Ms. Weinecke with a
Full-time position.
full-time employee
That's right.
At a entry-level librarian position.
as an entry-level librarian position. Do you want a roll call, Mrs. Seabright? Or do you want one discussion?
I think you have a very valid point. I'm not sure how legal or how you could go, the implementation of that would be, how you go about implementing that kind of hiring, so to speak.
You know, normally you post the position is what it is, it's a full-time position, and there's a job description, and then you fill the position. If you want to rip the position or bring it down to part-time, then you would do that, but you can't kind of interview for.
no,
either
what
full-time or
I'm saying is that replace the position with 2 part-time positions. We'll make a motion to replace Miss Weinicki's senior librarian position, and the senior librarian will now be
If
part-time
if the
position?
board had some interest in doing that, I'd like to research, you know, it's one thing to rift a single position from a full-time down to
No, what I'm
part-time.
saying
If we start taking every full-time position and making it 2 part-times, you know, that may be
Yeah,
seen by
you're gonna end up
Kirk as
order-
basically avoiding
You're gonna end up-
full-time positions.
You're gonna end up watering down also the
Well, it also-
quality of applicants you
You know, it must be maybe unfair labor practice as well, you know, we're basically, let's take all the full-time positions in the library, make them all part-time, and have 2 part-timers for every 1 full-timer, we pay the same thing and avoid the $25,000 the township tells us we owe for a medical.
And isn't this conversation on a public record proof of an unfair labor practice being contemplated by this board? Isn't that what we're doing right now
Well,
on public record?
I don't think we're doing, there's a motion to hire a full-time
Right.
person.
It's an unfair labor practice, can't do it.
I'm not saying, we're concerned about, you know, I don't think we can just do that. I'm not sure we can take every full-time position, reduce it to 2 part-time.
I didn't say to take every position.
No, but it's one thing if you want to take this position and rift it down to a part-time.
It's a single part-time.
That's different
No,
than
but
splitting
You
the
can't-
2 and just to avoid paying somebody benefits and pension. That seems,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You understand what I'm saying?
This one-
If you want to
could-
take it,
Well, what if we were
if
to,
you wanted to take
structure
it-
it this way? We're gonna start out by replacing this with a part-time position, and then,
That's not the recommendation of the director.
well, you would also have to really stay part-time, because otherwise then what you're doing is you're just, you know, going.
How many people do you have in the township
I mean, we're
that
not,
have their masters in library sciences that
No, that's-
would be willing to take?
I'm not saying you can't find a part-timer, all I'm saying is what I would be uncomfortable with doing is taking it, splitting it into 2 halves, and then not paying pension or benefits, because, I mean, again, we're not Home Depot, we don't get to do these things with civil service and union breathing down our neck, you know what I mean? So,
Okay. Well, there's a motion and a second.
but you could certainly riff it, or riff it down to part-time. I would just need to take a look at it, because it doesn't sound kosher to me that you could take every full-time position and make it part. Well, you could,
Rather than
right,
somebody
but if
else.
you could do it here, why couldn't you do it everywhere? Why couldn't you take every full-time position in the entire library and make it 2 part-time positions and not pay benefits for anybody, or pension for anybody? What would stop us from doing that? Nothing, right? Well, no, that can't be true.
that cannot be true.
Right. So, it can't be true. It's just too easy.
I understand that, I understand.
I think your point in general, though, is that staffing needs to be looked at now, rather than wait till the end of the year.
And
We're then
just-
scrambling to make cuts.
And just by this,
Correct.
it's
I
an
think that's your
$8,000
point, and I think you've made
No, no, I
it
understand,
very
but
well.
you're talking about $8,000 savings, right?
Question
But if you do 2 part-timers, it's a,
again, you can't.
no.
You can
didn't
do
say
one.
you can.
Well, I didn't say, I would want to look at
He
that
wants to look
carefully.
at it, because here's the thing.
But
If you replace it with 2 part-time positions that are $30,000 salary jobs, and you found 2 people that were qualified that were making 30 each, and you're not spending 90,000, you're saving,
No, I completely
you're saving
understand where you're coming from.
$48,000. I don't know, $48,000 is real. You do that 3 or 4 times, and you don't have to worry about the budget next
I
year.
under-
Parliamentary procedure here.
I understand your position, and it doesn't fall on deaf ears, but staff, obviously, the recommendation of Ms. O'Neill is to
Okay.
replace the person with the position.
I did the numbers, by the way, it's a 25 and change family for each employee, it looks 32.
Yeah, that's-
So that was, they divided 810 by 32, which is not, which is,
Let me just
Yeah.
say that there's a motion that's been made and
Yes, and
seconded.
a second.
Okay.
Well, I think there's been more than
If-
enough discussion,
if-
so.
If Rob is going to make a motion, and if you want to hear that motion and discuss it and that sort of thing,
Yes.
then you should probably vote.
Roll call vote, please.
Yeah, you should, to get that on the table,
Yes.
okay, well,
Roll
you can't vote for full-time and then a proposal
No,
for part-time.
we're not doing that, and it's
So you
not,
would have to decide.
The motion is for a
no
full-time
on the-
position.
yeah,
presiding officer
In
can
order
handle it.
to hear the next.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Siebert,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Vitcansis,
No.
Mr. Cordiano,
No.
Mr. Monahan,
Yes.
Miss Wilson,
Yes.
Miss Breen.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now, can there be a part-time motion at this point?
I wouldn't,
If it has been voted on, if it had passed after this.
listen,
Yes.
then-
board can make any motion it wishes. If you have a motion to replace the position with a full-time position, I will certainly look at it if you,
to replace the position.
But I think we should,
An entry-level librarian position.
the point's been made though, and so.
Moving.
So,
What? You have a question?
I think we're on to the next agenda item,
yes,
right?
sorry.
Yes.
You got resolution 25.
2013-25.
Okay, it's pretty self-explanatory. We had a very poor response. We received 2 written proposals. Seasons Matter, the proposal that was $4,950. Just let me remind you, that does not include the mowing part of the lawn care. It's just taking care of the shrubs and trees and weeding and things of that nature. Was significantly lower than the other proposal, which was from Guaranteed Landscaping or Guaranteed Contract?
Landscaping.
And we have experience with Seasons Matter. They have off and on been one of the vendors that had the lowest proposal. Surprised that we didn't hear from more. It has usually been a pretty competitive one, but as we've taken the mowing out, we don't have much of a contract anymore. So I think that might be part of it, that there's not that much interest. It's not much more than a residential contract, and there's a good bit of work. So if there are not any other questions, maybe.
Is there a motion? Is there any discussion?
Move to accept.
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Seibert?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Vitcantis?
Yes.
Mr. Coriano?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Just note that obviously there's a precedent to prefer Middletown companies, but base businesses, but obvious with the large discrepancy in bid, there's a obvious go with the lower one.
Now we have 2 more items instead of 1. We're taking off the Exchange 10 software one, because that's nothing that requires the board action. Continuing education request, we've only spent of our $8,000 budget, we've spent $25, I think, for Brock to go to that trustee workshop. This is the time of year, though, when things kick up in terms of staff education and training. I wanted to give you an overview of the number of programs that will be coming up. This is a turn the page over thing. NJLA is the one which needs action on this evening. We also attend Book Expo. Usually we take a van full of people and go in and meet authors and get a lot of freebies that we use in our summer reading club. The ebook summit is coming up in a couple of weeks, and because we are very interested in the ebook, in offering ebook services to our customers, we'll be able to learn from some of the other libraries that have some interesting takes on how they do it. One of the presenters is going to be from Colorado, from the Denver area, and they're doing this on their own. They have decided not to have a middleman or and are negotiating contracts directly with publishers, which is an interesting approach. And then our library assistants have a conference that they can go to, customized for the needs of those people who also serve the public. And I don't have the actual costs on that, but I think we usually send 2 people. It's a full-day conference, and it'll probably, I think the registration is somewhere around $85 a person, and then there's a little travel cost. On the first page, though, is the New Jersey Library Association Conference. There are 3 of us that I want to attend this year. Of course, as NJLA past president, I'm pretty much expected to be there, and I need to be there for the full conference. So I am requesting an overnight stay, which has been negotiated with the Revel at $170, $130 per night, including all the Atlantic City taxes and all that kind of stuff. So that's a pretty good rate that the conference got. For Megan Wyanecki, full conference and one night, because there are some speakers on 2 consecutive days and some programs that I think will be very useful to her in her new position. And Renee Cohen, one of our reference librarians. She's also on the Member Services Committee. She has some conference commitments to help that committee during the course of the conference, but she also wants to attend a one-day, actually I think it's a half-a-day pre-conference on I think also on the subject of e-books, and would need an overnight. And so we have a practice here that whenever we have an overnight travel involved, that I present that to you in advance for your review and hopefully your approval, so that when we submit our Oh, 170, right. Under my hotel, you're right, it's 342. Okay. Sorry. Our practices I presented to you in advance for your review. This is a very light year for conferencing outside of our library. We do most of webinars that are free, and we will have a staff day or 2 half-staff days this year. And I fully expect that to come in well under budget for the whole year. There are no national conferences that I am proposing for staff attendance, and either the American Library Association and the Public Library Association meets every other year. So there'll be another spate of program activity in the fall, but this represents taking it up to the summertime, and most of us go, there's a hiatus in that kind of activity. Are there questions about the potential costs or the program content, or?
So the total cost is $1,300 for 3 people.
I think so. I think that's probably.
Plus meals and
No, that includes that.
That's everything.
Yeah.
that includes that?
The registration is fairly reasonable.
It'd be 1,400.
What's the-
242 was wrong.
Oh, I'm
Right.
sorry. Oh, yes. You're right.
What's the rate for meals?
Well, I'm the only one that's going to attend, go to one of the structured meals, one of the program meals. That's $35. But I have to go to the leadership luncheon because that's when the president gives his or her speech, and, I'll be on the dais, so I need to be there.
Correct.
You have to eat food, though?
I eat food, as long as I'm not speaking. It's hard to do that if you have to give a speech.
It sounds like an unnecessary expense.
It's a
In some parts of the world, people don't eat every day.
I was just.
No, my staff keeps it.
Don't worry, they will have a steak dinner.
And the other cities always cut their prices to attract more people.
Well, you can set a limit if you choose.
I looked at the IRS rates for Atlantic City. The IRS sets an annual rate for, or a daily per diem rate.
Yes.
Right.
And for the hotel, they set a rate of something like $66 which is not very competitive for the city. I actually think the 171 is a pretty good rate.
$66 is flea bag.
Yeah. And then something like $66, believe it or not, for all the other incidentals, food, travel, transportation, parking, things like that. So if you total that up, I think actually just covering our documented expenses, everyone who goes on even if they go down the street to a conference, must submit vouchers and receipts and a written report.
So what do you need from us? Just a,
I need a resolution for us to attend the New Jersey Library Association conference at the not to exceed level 14.
It's a good thing.
Is that a motion?
Yes, motion.
A motion to what?
For how to go to this?
To accept the, I think
The
the motion
the
is.
whole package?
To approve the continuing education,
Absolutely. We need a
Continuing
resolution.
education?
are we spending money?
Yes.
No
We
question
should have
about
a
it.
resolution.
Then we need a
Mr. Kansas,
resolution.
are you making the
Yes, I'm
resolution?
making the resolution.
To accept continuing education?
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill, Ms. Wynette,
For the
and
New
Ms.
Jersey
Cohen?
Library
The
Association.
whole apple cart.
Okay.
I'll second Mr. Buchanan's resolution.
All right then.
I'll third.
No, okay.
Roll call?
Okay, Mr. Siebert,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Kansas,
Yes.
Mr. Cordiano.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Bree?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
And then the last is.
And last but not least is just the addition of the recommendation of that conference I attended to include in the bylaws that the no slight to Ms. Wilson or Mr.
No
Cordiano
slight taken.
or your abilities. But the mere fact is that at any meeting, your appointor could walk in and be a sitting member of this board.
Fine with me.
So I think it was a good idea to include that in our bylaws just to make sure it's extremely clear.
Very good.
So we need a vote on
Yes, we need a
that.
motion.
You can make.
I'll make a motion to.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Nelson. Roll call. Mr. Siebert?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Kansas?
Yes.
Mr. Cordiano?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson? Yes. Ms. Bree? Yes. Wow, okay, 8:47. Done.
No.
Oh,
No, I know.
public session?
Oh, yes, sorry. Does anybody like to speak? There's no public.
Moving on.
Larry's,
We can stop. Would you just call?
The Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA
There were no technical questions.
10:4-6 allows an exclusion of the public for that portion of the meeting when certain matters might endanger the public interest or risk of deprivation of individual rights as discussed, and the Board of Trustees of Middletown Public Library wish to discuss the following matters in non-public closed meeting, the resulting discussion being made public and a proper conclusion has been reached and there is no longer need for confidentiality in regards to pending or anticipated negotiations concerning the collective bargaining agreement with CWA Local 1032. Now therefore be resolved, the board will hold a closed executive session immediately in this room located in the Middletown Township Public Library. It's anticipated closed session will not last longer than approximately 45 minutes. And the board will be returning to,
Public portion, and I don't think you have any action plan, right?
no
So
action.
no action will be taken upon return to public session. So we need a motion, second, and a roll call. That's true.
Pretty tough.
Who made the motion?
Nobody yet.
Oh,
Motion. Anyone want to
A
second?
second.
Well, we can just do it all in favor on this
All
one.
in favor?
aye.
So now we're in closed, and we're going to do a roll call in closed as soon as Wendy gets back, and then you can start talking, Mr. President.
I can do that.
And then Susan's going to do a roll call right now.
Okay. Mr. Siebert.
Yes.
Mr. Monahan.
Here.
Ms. Green. Well, we'll come back to
She'll
she's
come
here.
back.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Cordiana.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Shivia, no. Mr. Kansas.
Yes.
O'Neill, Latona, and McCombin.
Here,
Here.
Mr. President.
Unfortunately, Ms. Kearns was not Rice, given the Rice knows that she would be discussed, so we cannot actually discuss any of her employment.
When we come out of executive, if there's nobody here, I'm okay, legal technically, if you want to just give a very general brief update about where we are, I don't know